So we're going to start with the case study questions. The first question, should the community try to maintain its basic democratic philosophy or establish restrictions to ensure optimal learning?
So, I mean, I think the way this school community went about like interrogating its curriculum was kind of the dream. Like, it was almost hard for me to believe. Like, okay, you were able to navigate this many different types of people and get their input, and following Freire's pattern of having like a curriculum team to respond to the community and then spit back their ideas and their situation to them, using their curriculum knowledge. So like, from the knowledge I have in this case study, I would not think they need to like abandon ship. What I see, it sounds like there's more like a behavioral expectations issue. And one of the Supreme Court justices in that latest ruling, called schools the nurseries for democracy. I mean, I think we can still have democratic practices, and it doesn't mean it's like total
Chaos.
free reign, right? Like, if students are on their phones, maybe you need to have a phoneless policy. And to me, that's not taking away their democratic ideals. We have plenty of workplaces where maybe the expectation is you turn your phone face down during a meeting, for example. So to me, it sounds like they're sort of conflating some student behavior motivation issues with the curriculum. And I know those can definitely be linked. Like, if you have a strong curriculum, hopefully student motivation and engagement would be high. But I feel like it's them sort of trying to panicking when it seems like it needs to look more closely at where's the student misbehavior coming, because it's not like they've gotten rid of state testing. So have students always come to class not very prepared? What about this system is making students be less engaged? Because to me, I don't think it's necessarily trying to be more democratic or rethinking the curriculum that's leading to that.
I think in the other elementary schools they talked about too in the chapter, where they are almost isolated from the community and couldn't get people to come to meetings and engage. I'd rather have this problem like at Babcock, where there's so much influence that you're not really sure how to sort through it, because that's better than none and having no engagement. If you were to, enact a stricter discipline policy or begin to put like a cell phone rule, at least you could have community folks come to the table and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. You get buy-in from parents, then that becomes way easier. So the next question is about, can freedom be made a basis for learning without also being a potential basis for anarchy? Which is interesting that they use the word anarchy, because it doesn't seem like you're at that place, but you do want to create that environment for kids to sort of challenge the system, because that's a fundamental of democracy too. You shouldn't just assume everything is perfect and what can we do better. But I agree, what you were talking about, Jenny, with the discipline structure. To me, that seems like a logical place to go in getting feedback from the community. The curriculum, the development of all of that seems to be, I think you said, a dream. I think that's probably pretty accurate. It just seems perfect, like textbook development of what you want to do. So.
Yeah, and I'll add to questions like 1 and 2. And I also echo that the community input, they had student voice. And I think even in the readings, it talked about they actually drove around the community to actually find out what the community needs. And I thought that was critical. Going back to the structure, kind of Dr. White, he structures this class where we have choice on how to complete the assignments. We can do the PowerPoint, narrated, panel. And I think having that structure, but giving the students the choice also is another thing this district could add to their curriculum. And I kind of was thinking about my elementary school. I still remember one of my elementary teachers had us do decimals, and instead of just doing the test, she actually gave us pretend money, and we had to purchase and buy things using real money, and it was relevant. And I still remember, and that was years ago. So just ideas like that, I think, could really help this district, making sure the teachers are using the relevant content.
And I'll draw on a personal example too. Last school year, I really moved to doing student-led discussion as like the base of my middle school English class. And that, in my mind, we were practicing like the democratic process, but we still set norms together as a class so that students didn't interrupt each other. Students didn't have cell phones out. They got a grade for the discussion as a group. We worked on those norms together and we got feedback together. But I just, yeah, again, I would say that it does not need to be anarchy just because you try to create more freedom. And I also think like things don't need to be set in stone, right? I think maybe you, Laura, mentioned like something that made me think about, student feedback on rules. So maybe you put a zero tolerance policy for cell phones, but then you get students form a group and they come up with an argument for why phones should be allowed in certain places in the school, and the school listens and evaluates, and maybe someone draws on, okay, well, we had this issue last year, so what could we do to make sure phones aren't a problem in the classroom? So again, I think it doesn't have to be so black and white, like just anarchy or complete lockdown.
But that conversation part is huge. Like you say the cell phone thing. So a few years ago, I don't know if you guys know what Yonder bags are, but it's like a pouch you put your cell phone in, and then it has a magnetic lock. And so we purchased these for every classroom at our school. And the rule was that when you walk in the room, you get a pouch, your phone goes in the pouch, and then you can keep it with you. And then on the way out, you can unlock the pouch. And so that evolved over time to only if your phone is out, then you have to put it in a Yonder bag, because kids were like, you're not getting it out of my pocket, right? And so, which is fine. It's on their person, it's their property. I kind of get that sort of freedom thing too. And we didn't have a cell phone, problem that following year when we changed that rule. Now with COVID, that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, the encouraging people, teachers and kids, to speak up against, for, not against necessarily, but policy and rules. All right, Nick, you have the last one. Babcock philosophy, and what might you want to change as a curriculum leader in this school?
Well, and honestly, with our conversation, I don't know if there's necessarily a curriculum problem. It just really seems the structural implementation of the ideas and really the discipline is what's lacking. But with their philosophy, it's definitely progressive, and it's based upon democracy, freedom, and participatory leadership. And I really think of John Dewey. And so I went back in the text and found the quote from John Dewey, and he argues that curriculum is an important means by which societies define and maintain themselves. And that's from page 10 of the book. And then really what I have has nothing really to do with the curriculum. It's just really making sure as the leader and then the teachers that making sure the learning goals are clear and the expectations are known. Kind of what Jenny said, making sure all people are involved in the norms and having students be involved in norms. I know that's a really good point as well. And just really explain to students what you want them to learn and why, and then having a clear outcome of where we want to go. And I just, as I said earlier, just giving students choice. I think that's a big option. Say there's 3 ways we can complete this assignment, you pick. And so I think those are just kind of my thoughts on this type of philosophy.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of said the same thing to each question. So pretty thorough.